Welcome to today's video about the Japanese secret to learning smarter, not harder. Picture this. You spend hours, maybe even days cramming for a huge exam. You feel like you've got it down. But the next morning, you sit down to take the test and your mind is a complete blank. It's infuriating, right? It feels like your brain has betrayed you. Well, science actually has a name for this enemy, the forgetting curve, and it is absolutely ruthless. Research shows our brains are wired to dump about 70% of new information within just 24 hours. It's not because you're lazy or unintelligent, it's a survival mechanism. But what if I told you there's a group of people who laugh in the face of the forgetting curve? In Japan, students are expected to learn and retain thousands of incredibly complex characters, and they remember them for life. So what's their secret? Are they born with super brains? Do they study 24/7 until their eyes burn? The answer is no. The truth is much simpler and much more powerful. They don't study harder, they study smarter. Most of us were never taught the right way to learn. We were just told to read, highlight, and hope for the best. It's like trying to fill a leaking bucket. Today, that ends. You're about to learn 5 simple, science-backed methods that will change the way you study forever. Let's start with the one that flips traditional learning on its head. It's called active recall. Most of us study by trying to push information in, reading a book, watching a video, listening to a lecture. But that's passive. Real, lasting learning happens when you force your brain to pull information out. Think of your brain like a muscle. Passively reading is like watching someone else lift weights. It does nothing for you. Active recall is you doing the heavy lifting. So after you read a chapter, close the book. Seriously, grab a blank piece of paper and force your brain to write down everything it can remember. It will feel difficult. But that struggle, that's your brain building stronger connections. That's the feeling of knowledge becoming permanent. But what if you feel totally overwhelmed by a topic? That brings us to method number 2, a cornerstone of Japanese education, the Kumon method. You wouldn't try to build a skyscraper in one day, right? You lay it brick by brick. Kumon applies that same powerful logic to learning. Instead of force-feeding your brain for hours, you dedicate just 15 to 30 minutes every single day to one small piece of the puzzle. It sounds almost too simple, but the power is in the consistency. It's exactly what James Clear talks about in his book Atomic Habits. A tiny 1% improvement each day makes you 37 times better in a year. This isn't about volume. It's about precision and daily discipline. Okay, so you're learning in small, consistent chunks. But how do you make sure it sticks for good? That's where our third method comes in, spaced repetition. This is brilliant. Imagine you're watering a plant. You don't drown it with a gallon of water once and then abandon it for a month. You give it a little water consistently just before it gets thirsty. Your memory is that plant. Instead of studying a topic once and moving on, you strategically revisit it right at the moment your brain is about to forget it. You review it after 1 day, then 3 days later, then a week later, and so on. Every time you do this, the memory becomes stronger and more deeply embedded. This is the ultimate weapon against cramming. Now, this next technique is less of a method and more of a philosophy, but it might be the most powerful of all. It's called Kaizen, which translates to continuous small improvement. Forget the pressure of becoming an expert overnight. Kaizen is about getting just a tiny bit better every single day. You don't need marathon study sessions. In fact, you can see incredible results with just 6 focused minutes a day. Try this. 2 minutes of active recall on a topic. 2 minutes of reviewing older material using spaced repetition. And 2 final minutes of practicing one small specific skill. 6 minutes. That's it. The cumulative effect of these tiny daily efforts will absolutely blow you away. But have you ever stopped to ask why this principle of Kaizen is so devastatingly effective? Why does our brain, which so fiercely resists a 2-hour study marathon, happily embrace a simple 6-minute routine? It all comes down to bypassing your brain's ancient, hardwired threat detection system. Think about the last time you told yourself, okay, this Saturday I'm going to study for 5 straight hours and master this entire subject. What actually happened? Chances are your brain immediately threw up a massive wall of resistance. The task felt so monumental, so overwhelmingly large that the very thought of it was exhausting before you even began. This isn't a character flaw, it's a feature of your brain's operating system. Huge, undefined goals trigger the amygdala, the part of your brain that screams, danger. It floods you with stress hormones, making you want to procrastinate, to scroll on your phone, to suddenly clean your entire apartment, to do literally anything other than face that cognitive monster. Kaizen is the ultimate brain hack because it flies completely under the radar of this system. 6 minutes, a couple of pages, your brain doesn't even register that as a real effort. There's no stress, no resistance. Instead of a daunting mountain, you're just taking a single easy step. But here's the real magic. Every time you complete that tiny, manageable task, your brain rewards you with a small, satisfying hit of dopamine, the motivation molecule. You're essentially training your brain through a series of small, pleasurable wins to associate learning with reward, not with pain. Over weeks and months, you build an unstoppable chain of positive reinforcement. It's like carving a canyon with a tiny stream of water. It doesn't happen with one giant, terrifying flood, but with a consistent, gentle flow that, over time, creates something immense and permanent. So, if Kaizen is the guiding philosophy, what's the practical day-to-day tool that puts it into action and ensures you're not just studying, but truly understanding? This leads us to a surprisingly powerful technique that feels more like a game than work. It's called the Feynman technique, named after the legendary Nobel Prize-winning physicist Richard Feynman. He was a man as famous for his genius as he was for his ability to make ridiculously complex ideas seem simple. He understood a fundamental truth that most of us miss. You don't truly know something until you can explain it in the simplest possible terms. Think about it. You read a chapter, you nod along, your eyes scan the words, and you think, yeah, I get it. But do you really? This is what's known as the illusion of competence, a dangerous trap where familiarity is mistaken for mastery. The Feynman technique shatters that illusion. Here's how it works in 4 incredibly simple steps. Step 1. Choose a concept you want to learn. Step 2, and this is the most critical part, try to teach it to a complete beginner. The best way to do this is to grab a piece of paper and pretend you're explaining it to a 12-year-old. Why a child? Because it forces you to strip away all the complicated jargon and academic language. You're forced to use simple words and clear analogies. Step 3. When you get stuck, and you will get stuck, that's the moment you've identified the exact gaps in your knowledge. That's your signal to go back to the source material and fill in that specific hole in your understanding. Step 4. Once you've filled the gap, go back and refine your simple explanation one last time. This method transforms you from a passive consumer of information into an active teacher, forcing your brain to not only retrieve the information, but also to organize it, connect it, and simplify it into its purest form. But deep understanding is one thing. How do you ensure your brain can access that information instantly, especially under the pressure of an exam? This requires building not just knowledge, but mental infrastructure. This brings us to one of the most ancient and powerful learning techniques ever devised, a method used by Greek and Roman orators to memorize hours-long speeches and epic poems. The memory palace. Our brains are notoriously terrible at remembering abstract, boring lists of facts, but they are absolutely phenomenal at remembering places and stories. Why? It's evolutionary. For 99% of human history, we didn't need to remember textbook definitions. We needed to remember the path back to the cave, where the clean water source was and which plants were poisonous. Our brains are wired for spatial and visual information. The Memory Palace brilliantly exploits this natural superpower. Here's how you build one. First, choose a location you know intimately: your childhood home, your daily walk to work, your favorite video game map. This is your palace. Now, let's say you need to memorize the first 5 US presidents. You'll mentally walk through your palace and place an absurd, vivid image representing each president in a specific location. For number 1, George Washington, you might imagine him at your front door, furiously scrubbing a cherry red door with a washing machine. For number 2, John Adams, you walk into your living room and see him juggling giant glowing apples. For number 3, Thomas Jefferson, you go into your kitchen and see him riding a jet ski in your sink. The more bizarre, vivid, and even emotional the image, the more strongly it will stick. You're not just memorizing a name, you're creating a rich, multi-sensory story that your brain can't ignore. This transforms studying from a monotonous chore into a creative, imaginative adventure. You become the architect of your own mind, building entire worlds to house your knowledge. Creating these rich mental landscapes, like all the other methods we've discussed, requires one final crucial ingredient. It's the glue that holds everything together. Without it, even the most brilliant techniques fall apart. This is the art of Su, which means deep focus. In Japan, students train themselves to focus deeply by using little rituals, like lighting a candle, sitting in the same spot, or using the same pen every time they study. These signals tell their brain, it's time to learn. You can do the same. Find a quiet place, turn off distractions, and do something small that helps your brain shift into study mode. It might be sitting at a certain desk or listening to calm music. When you focus fully, your brain absorbs information much faster and remembers it longer. So now you can use these simple science-backed methods and start learning smarter, not harder. You don't have to change everything today, just start with one of these techniques. Try it right now. You might be surprised at how much easier studying becomes. Remember, even small steps can lead to big changes. The top 1% of learners aren't smarter, they just learn differently. Now it's your turn. If you found this helpful, make sure to subscribe for more tips like this.